From Rod Moore's recovery to the Michigan offense, recruiting Bryce Underwood's potential, and Ohio State's wild game time proposals, we are covering all of that and more on the Michigan Mailbag on this episode of Locked On Wolverines.
You are Locked On Wolverines, your daily podcast on the Michigan Wolverines, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Happy Thursday. We are back and doing it. Locked On Wolverines podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. I am your man on the ground, Isaiah Hole, publisher of Wolverines Wire through USA Today Sports Media Group. A little bit later mailbag this evening. Just got home from Bible study, but we are going to get right into it. Lots of great questions from you, starting with our leaders and best, James Crup at James Crup6. You're named the GM of the football program tomorrow. What changes are you making from the way things are being done now? This is going to sound like a cop-out, but for the most part, not a heck of a lot of things. I think Sean McGee is doing a fantastic job as the GM. I think the only thing might be is, obviously he's allocating money in certain ways that there's a little bit more geared towards, the incentive structure, right? He's thinking with an NFL mindset, having come from the Chicago Bears, the idea of I'm not going to spend this much on this type of guy. I might spend more on some guys, but I'm sure that there are exceptions to that rule, but I don't know for sure what they are. But I mean, that's the only thing. And again, a lot of it's behind the looking glass. I haven't cared enough to get super deep into just a lot of the NIL stuff. And, I begrudgingly cover that in the transfer portal. But a lot of it is kind of, between smoke and mirrors. So I kind of don't know that much enough to be able for my detractors out there that like to say I pretend to know things. I think anyone who watches the show or listens to the show and has for any time at point in time knows that I will just say, I don't know what I don't know. I do not pretend to know things that I don't know. And that doesn't mean I'm right all the time, even when I do know something, but it's, things change, but I don't know. And that's the best thing I can say there, because I just don't have enough knowledge there. Josh Barr at Jadaki heard the pod talking about Joel Klatt's takes and completely agree with you. Have you tried inviting him back on the pod to discuss it? I generally think he is one of the more reasonable people in the media covering college football, so I'd be curious to hear his thoughts with accurate info. I have not, because that's not really the style of podcast that I want to do with Joel, where it's confronting him on something and being let's, clarify the record. We'll have Joel. We tried to make an episode work last year, the last 2 years, really. Unfortunately, since he launched his own podcast and it went from being 1 day a week to multiple days a week, especially during the season, he's just burnt out. And we didn't even do, I think the last 2 years, we haven't even done our customary Big Ten Media Days show. So we'll have him on eventually again, but it'll be less that. I want more of his insight of what he does know for fact, or at least feels about the program, that type of stuff. Yeah, I missed when I think the last time we had him on where it was dedicated solely to Locked On Wolverines. Sometimes we've had it some where we've doubled up with Wolverines Wire, as well as, me throwing the pod, the segment up here. But the last one that was solely Locked On, I think, was 2021 before the MSU game. So it's long overdue. We haven't had Joel on in a while. He was not a regular, but we'd have him on a couple times a year going back before. So this just kind of look behind the smoke and mirrors of the show. My brother Metal Michael Wolf at MWolf21. The offense has been known to start slow under Chip Lindsey. Do you expect that to change? I don't know. And that's because it would, I guess, maybe not. Just because that's, Michigan playing complimentary football, the boa constrictor, if that continues, which I don't know if it will or won't, we won't really know until the season happens. I think that generally you're going to kind of see that a little bit, right? There's a feeling out process, but Chip Lindsey's a different guy. But at the same time, Josh Gaddis came from Penn State, Alabama, offenses that didn't necessarily start slow, and he started slow here. I think part of that, though, was him being a new offensive coordinator. And then after that, Sharon and Matt Weiss being new offensive co-coordinators. And then after that, Sharon being a new offensive coordinator, although some of those games in either of those last 2 years, they started really fast. So I'm not sure, because it just feels like the best thing for Michigan would be to like get up 21 on somebody, because then good luck, right? Or get up 14 on somebody, then good luck, So I don't think that'll be the plan, but it's kind of ingrained in the Michigan offense to some degree, so maybe it will continue. Jonathan Joseph at J. Joseph 2156. Sean McGee leaves for Navy. Who is on the list to replace him? I don't know. I hate to constantly give you guys don't knows, but I feel like that's what the mailbag is half the time. The Michigan I don't knows, because he's gainfully employed, and I don't think that's changing. Again, I was one who kind of sounded some alarm bells to some colleagues, because I had known through an intermediary source that was his dream job, Navy. I don't know that he's necessarily on their like top tier or not, but I've heard from some of those colleagues that I've talked to that it does not sound necessarily like that he's necessarily the dude for that, right? To be the AD at Navy. So I don't really have a list of candidates. I think the disappointing thing is there's not anyone obvious, but I think you would look at someone maybe with some NFL front office experience. It might not be names that either of us, as if it's just you and me, Jonathan. Any of us would really necessarily know off the top of our heads, right? Like I think that it could certainly just be an administrative person who's got NFL experience or high level college experience that has connections to Michigan. They have to understand Michigan, all of that kind of stuff. So that would be, I think, where I would go. But I don't think he's going to go anywhere ultimately. That's my feeling. It's opinion, not fact, that he's not going to end up going anywhere. Spencer Whitmore at Spencer Whitmore, finishing us out in segment 1. Thoughts on the rumor 14-16 playoffs. I feel like this is all just a money grab, and no one is going to be pumped about extra Missouri-Arkansas first round game. I could spend a whole show on this. I'm not going to, because it'll just be me being angry. I want to go back to 4. I thought 4 was perfect. I went into that first year in 2014 thinking it should be 8 or maybe even 6, like 2 first round buys, and then have, the other 4 battle it out and then go from there. I thought 4 ended up being perfect. I thought it was the perfect amount of expansion. I think that it waters down college football's regular season, which is the greatest regular season in football. Like, that was the thing. College football in and of itself already was a playoff unto itself. Right? There was no room for error. And then you just, for the sake of a money grab, which I agree with, you create all kinds of room for error, right? Like, there's no reason why Ohio State should have won the national championship. Now, they were extremely good, and I'm not trying to demean them at all. I'm just saying that the great thing about college football before last year is that the 2 national champion contenders, the 2 teams that played for the national championship, Notre Dame lost to an unranked middle-of-the-road team, and Ohio State lost to an unranked middle-of-the-road Michigan. That should have precluded both of them from being in the playoff, and yet both of them were in the national championship game. Some would argue that makes it even better because, they didn't have that count against them. I would argue that it makes the sport worse, right? Every week, every game meant something. Michigan 2016 might have been the biggest beneficiary from a college football playoff that was expanded, right? Because I think they could have won it all. They lost 3 games by, obviously you had the postseason in there, but 3 total games by 5 points. They could have, them losing to Iowa, suddenly they had no room for error. And I just think that when you've got Ohio State fans out there trying to say that the game doesn't mean anything anymore, that tells you everything you need to know. I know like a lot of that's coping. But that tells you everything you need to know in terms of like the importance of the regular season being like diminished. Like, you don't want the loser of the game to have anywhere to hide at that point. So I think it's ridiculous, and I'm tired of the greed in the sport. All right, we've got so much more coming up. We are going to get to more of your questions. We're going to do so here in just a moment. But before we do, there's nothing like the atmosphere of an NBA playoff game. Every bucket, every defensive stop, every moment feels huge. It's electric in the arena with Game Time. You want to be a part of that without the stress of last-minute ticket hunting. Game Time makes it fast and easy to get playoff tickets, even when the demand is sky high. Prices on the app actually go down as tip-off gets closer. Their last-minute deals can save you up to 60%. Save up to 60%, like I just said, buying last minute for sports, concerts, comedy, theater, and more. And with the all-in pricing, it means that there are no surprise fees at checkout. What you see is what you pay. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem the code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets. Lowest price, guaranteed. Before we get to the Victor's Valiant, I at least want to let you all know it is safe to watch or listen. I mean, you should be watching and listening to it anyway. But to the Big Ten squad, the reason why I say it's safe is because you aren't going to just get unfettered, unchecked rival fan opinions on Michigan. I was on the show that aired today, so you can check that out on the channel. Kind of funny because our host liked to say, like, you know, we discussed all of segment 3 is all about Michigan football, and said with the 8.5 over under, which we did a whole show on yesterday, it was like everyone's going to take the under. Guess what? No one did. Spoiler alert, but it's worth watching. So check that out. All right, Victor's Valley started with Perry Mitchell at Perry Mitchell 08 with Rod Moore finally running. What do you think would be a reasonable expectation for his 2025 season? I think the ceiling is somewhere something similar to 2023, where he came in a little shaky against Rutgers, but was elite by season's end. You just took the words out of my mouth. See, you don't answer your own question. If you want me, but yes, that's reasonable. I think he's not necessarily gonna. I think he'll be a day one starter unless he has another setback. That's the indication Sharon Moore is given. That he should be good to go. I think that'll probably be the case, you know, and I wouldn't expect him to be back to full form, but I'd say by midseason, then he'll look more like Rod Moore, which means he'll probably be a rotational player for a little bit. Don't be surprised if you don't see him, like you see him start, but like a lot more rotation than you're used to seeing with him. Edwin Simmons at Simmons_Edwin. Happy Thursday, my brother in Christ. Happy Thursday to you as well. What's the safety depth charts? Perfect timing here to have that. Rod looks like he has ways to go from his video. Was the injury worse than we thought? He had a setback at some point because they certainly didn't rule him out for Ohio State. And he just started running on solid ground a couple days ago. So yeah, it wasn't that the injury was worse. It was he had a setback. Safety depth chart's kind of hard to really say because it's just so deep. It's among the deepest groups in the entire team. I look at it and you say, okay, Brandon Hillman's going to be a starter. You're going to find a way to get Mason Curtis on the field, but that could be at nickel. You're absolutely going to be playing both of the Metcalf brothers, although one of them, probably Tevis, could be an outside guy. I don't know. I mean, he was playing more safety in the spring game, but you might just look at him. I know Michigan looks at him and says, this is a guy that we just love and we want to get him on the field. So that might be an option. I'm curious to see about Jaden Mangum, who, if he's, back. So I don't really have here's the ones, the twos or whatever. But I would guess that the ones would be Rod Moore and Brandon Hillman. And then after that, you're just kind of, it can kind of work the same way the interior defensive line is, where it's like, is there really an A team compared to the B team or the C team? I mean, kind of relatively even. That's the kind of beauty of this defense. And what the talent that they have at the moment. Jacob Shavaria, the Bleacher Report app is back to normal. Any plans to go live again on there? How did you end up doing that in the first place? They reached out to me at some point, was it 2 years ago, and asked me during the season if I would be interested in doing a live show. They at first it was just one, and then they were like, that went great, we'd like you to do more. And then now I do pretty much all of them during the season. So if they ask me back next year, yeah, I'll be doing it every whatever day that is, Wednesday, throughout the I only do it during the season. And if they ask me back, I'll absolutely continue to do that. I'm not the one at William Cawthorn 9. Why does it seem like every year Michigan is slept on, like they haven't been consistent for at least the past 4 years? I don't know. I think it's kind of funny. We've talked about this on the show for a long time, but then before the run, but even with the run, if it was Ohio State that went to 3 straight college football playoffs and won a national championship after that, look at Ohio State, loses everything and are considered to be the number 1 team in the country. Michigan lost everything. We're at least given some respect to be I think that they could be a top 10 team maybe. They didn't live up to that. So I think that's partially why, because Michigan's had some not so good seasons, but I think people look at 2020 and now 2024 and they sit, or even like 2017 and say like, see, that's why we can't trust them. Instead of like looking at it of like, yeah, they might have like a slightly down year, but then like they're going to end up being elite like really quickly again. Now, questions with Sharon Moore compared to Jim Harbaugh, fine. But like the fact that it's like, you look at Penn State, we've talked about this on the show since the beginning of the show, 2018. Like no team has gotten more run off of 1 year's worth of success than Penn State. Now they have a playoff that they can talk about now that the playoff has expanded. But like usually that's how it goes, right? Like Alabama was the hotness until, even with LSU, until Georgia won the national championship. And then suddenly it was like, okay, Alabama, we don't care about you anymore. It's all about Georgia. And like those teams, like even when they have bad years, they are looked at as being like this great, like, you know, well, yeah, it was a down year, but whatever. Michigan, for whatever reason, does not get that type of benefit of the doubt. I can't explain it. I don't. Words of Bill Paxton. You can't explain it. You can't predict it, except for you actually can predict it. Continuing from William, these Underwood conspiracies, any validity to them, they have to come from somewhere. No. And yeah, they come from somewhere. They come from trolls. If you don't know what he's referring to, it's I think it started on some Ohio State boards and it's made its way onto the LSU boards where they're like, oh, Bryce is reaching out to LSU, wants to come back. No, there's no validity to it. None. He couldn't go, like he couldn't leave Michigan now if he wanted to. I mean, he could. It just means he would play nowhere. But no, there's no validity to him at all. He is as entrenched at Michigan. And I know that they're saying, oh, the NIL checks bounced or whatever. But you think Larry Ellison's checks bounced. Like, are you daft? Are you daft? I would say. Continuing, I've heard a couple people ask about Connor coming back to Michigan after the way he was treated. Would he even consider if it was possible? 100% yes, he would. DE Wolverine at KMoss_11. If you had to choose Mikey Keene, if healthy, or Bryce Underwood, who gets the first full game? I mean, it's Underwood. It's, 1,000% Underwood. I mean, at this point. Great Bambino X at Colossus So Clout X. Have an important question that we all need answers to. How much wood could a woodchuck chuck if a woodchuck could chuck wood? LOL. I got nothing. Happy Thursday, Isaiah. Thank you. NB Hunt at NB Hunt 10. Who's the veteran leader on the team? A lot of young folks. Who's the voice of reason when times get tough besides Rod Moore? I'm not sure we have one. Yeah, Max Bredesen on offense, for sure. I mean, he's a fellow returning captain. Giovanni Elhadi has been talked about as being a vocal leader for the offense as well. And then who else defensively? I don't think Rayshon Benny is necessarily that guy, but I know he is like kind of like he and Trey Pierce and Damon Payne, or not Trey, yeah, Trey Williams, I meant, not Trey Pierce, all have some leadership qualities. But I think you're looking more at Rod Moore, Zeke Berry on that back end. I mean, Ernest Hausmann too. How did I forget him? Ernest Hausmann's the quintessential leader. They absolutely have leaders. I actually like the leadership on this team at this point, maybe a little bit more than the last one. Not maybe a little bit more, definitely more. Mike Matthews at Michigan, Mike 7. Your favorite game you've attended at Michigan Stadium? Mine is 95, Michigan OSU, the Biaka Batuka game. First game I truly remember attending. I'm going to have to, oh man. I mean, it's 2021 Michigan, Ohio State. It was a little bittersweet because I was in the press box. One of two games that year I was in the press box and not on the sidelines. Other than that, it's maybe hard to beat the first game I ever went to, which was 2006 Wisconsin. Wisconsin was a good team that year. We didn't know it at the time. And then outside of that, 2013, actually, yeah, I'll go 2021 Michigan, Ohio State, then 2013 Under the Lights Notre Dame, because we all thought Michigan was going to be really sweet. I was there as a fan, of course. And like it felt like being at the Super Bowl. And then that first game, the Wisconsin 2006. At Yoder77 with just an M emoji. Love the Jesus shoutouts on your podcast. Praise him very much. Which, by the way, I don't know if it's up yet. I was on his glory.me show. I said this yesterday, but I did take 5 with Pastor Dave. So check that out. We talked Michigan football as well as Jesus. What position group as a whole will get the most production this year, do you think? If you're talking offense, running back. If you're talking defense, linebacker. I think that linebacker group is just nasty. And I mean, some of that's intel. Some of it's, having eyes. But I think that linebacker group is incredible. So I think that would be it. Wow. Okay. We're getting way behind time because I'm taking way too much time. Adam Kasel @Adam_Kasel. What's the biggest positive and negative overreaction to the spring game you've seen from fans and or media? The biggest overreaction, I think, is to the offensive line. It's a split squad. And I just didn't, after rewatching, I did a whole show on it. I didn't really see what they were saying. And I also think that Bryce's stat line was an initial overreaction, and I think you watch actually like the ball placement, what he was doing. I think it's all plus. So those are both negative overreactions. Positive overreaction, I didn't really feel like we heard a ton of like really crazy positive things coming out of it, honestly. Which M football player would you want to have a 30-minute one-on-one sit-down interview with? If you're talking current, because I've had it probably with any of the past ones outside of Tom Brady, it would be Samaj. There's no question. It would be Samaj Morgan. Which coach? Wink. And what would you ask besides football? Samaj, I would just try to let him go. Let him say whatever he wants to say. I would be privy to that. Wink, I would actually just try to ask him about life. Really interesting dude. Fun to talk to. The Rican Raider at Hamstan87. Any idea where a 2026 class might end up ranking wise? It seems like Sharon really wants recruiters as well as coaches. Also, Colston is fitting in just fine with the Bears. I'm so excited. That's good for you and the Bears. I hope that Colston never knows peace in Chicago. I hate the Bears. They're my least favorite team in the whole NFL. Anyway. I hope he does great and that they lose every game. I hope he does amazing. It's 200 yards a game and that they lose every single game. No offense to you or to Colston. It's hard to say because Michigan has 5 recruits right now committed. Now, if they can get like some of those big names that they're after, Savion Hyder, Kelvin Obot just put Michigan in his top 4, just basically eliminated USC is what he did. If they're able to get, flip like a receiver, they like right now it's underwhelming, but I think like they're in position for like 4 or 5 stars, depending on if you're looking at composite rankings or, independent ones. Like and it's just too early. Like that's a June, July question. Mark Z at Mark Zimke finishing out segment 2 before we have to go rapid fire. How different would your podcasts and articles be if you could report all of the off the record conversations you have about players and coaches? Most of the shows and articles wouldn't be different, but the ones that would be, either it would get people irrationally excited, or I shouldn't even say irrationally, rationally excited, or depending on the conversation, want to burn the program down to the ground. I've had conversations. This is the closest I can say to it. For instance, I had, 3 years ago-ish, a 4-hour-long phone conversation with someone who was very inside the program. Very, very, very inside the program. 4-hour long, and it was just basically a complaint festival after they had left. Yeah, the show after that would probably not, raise a lot of alarms, but again, I wasn't raising any alarms myself. So, kind of hard to say. All right. We are way behind time. I didn't even notice that we were that behind time. We've got more to get to, and we're going to have to do it quickly, and we're going to do so here in just a moment. But before we do, did you know your Fire TV is also an Xbox? Turn any TV into your gaming and entertainment hub with Fire TV Stick 4K devices. No console required. Just grab your paired controller, subscribe, or sign into Xbox Game Pass Ultimate with EA Play included, and you're ready to play. Dive into hundreds of premium titles from EA Sports College Football 25 to Call of Duty Black Ops 6 and Avowed as easily as you stream your favorite shows. It's gaming made simple. The latest technology for elevated playing is where this is at. That's right, because it's got Wi-Fi 6 and 6E with auto low latency mode, advanced technology. Fire TV Stick 4K delivers smoother, more responsive gameplay with lightning fast speeds you need to stay competitive. So head over to Amazon.com/Fire TV Locked On, that is, to get started. Xbox Game Pass Ultimate subscription and compatible controller required. Available on select devices, including Fire TV Stick 4K 2nd Gen, Fire TV Stick 4K Max 1st and 2nd Gen, and Fire TV Cube 3rd Gen. All right, we have to cap these shows at 30 minutes because of the camera I choose to use. This is the only one. It shuts off automatically at 30. The other two I have don't do that, but the picture's not as nice. This is my Canon R6. Then it's Mark 1. And I'm wasting time. Let's get to the Blue Crew. We're going to go fast. Justin Rambron. At J Rambron. Hey, Isaiah, happy Thursday. My wife gave me a painting for my birthday. I really want Sharon and Wink to sign this. You know any way we could find out which hotel the team is staying in on the road games? Planning going to Maryland, USC, and Northwestern this year. No, I never know that. I mean, I would call Schembeckler and see if you could just basically say, hey, I want to get this signed. How can we make that happen? That's the best shot that I could give you, to be honest. Alex at AK174_ draft your starting 22 of players from 2010 till now. I'm going to have to do that as like a show. Didn't give you much time here. That's going to require way too much thought. No, I'm sorry. I'm going to move on. Pistons FAMO. If Michigan's wide receivers are underwhelming for the second year in a row, would you expect Sharon to pay for a top-tier wide receiver next offseason? I know Ron Bellamy is viewed one of the better coaches, so moving on from him doesn't seem like the route that they would go. I think that would 100%, because you can't waste Bryce, right? Like, you don't want to just waste Bryce with, like, underwhelming. But I think that they'll be better with Donovan McCulley. ZT Jones at _Jack Jones. Is there any timeline for Rod Moore's return? Him running on the ground for the first time in May seems like he won't be a full go by the start of the season in July, August. Hard to say. Hank Davis at Hank Davis. If Bryce does indeed start, who will be the toughest road environment he'll face this season? Probably Oklahoma, but I don't sleep on Nebraska. But outside of that, I mean, he'll face a lot of hate at MSU, but it'll be Oklahoma or Nebraska. If Nebraska's a noon game, it would be different than a night game. It's a great place, but it's a different scenario from at noon and at night. I got a second one from NB Hunt, which I didn't see. So you had one you're both, the Victor's Valley and the Blue Crew. So the Bucknuts are proposing yet another law to make them even more soft. What do you think about them banning top 10 matchups before 3:30? And you make up a more ridiculous story from a more ridiculous organization. This comes on the heels of banning flag planting. My dyslexia is starting to act up here. It's absolutely absurd, and what it really is just, Ohio fans, Ohio State fans within Ohio State legislature. You get a bunch of ridiculousness like that. You almost can't make up their own pathos. Michael Jadlowski at Jadlowski. Need to see the news again. Same thing, that Ohio is trying to pass a bill so the team doesn't have to play any noontime games, starting with the Texas game. Listen, I love noon games, by the way, but I'm also in the media, and like I have to work like 18-ish hour days with games, and no matter what time the game kicks off. Night games are abysmal for me, but I like the atmospheres and everything. But noon games, like, I've just kind of become accustomed to. They're just great. So as a fan, I understand you want the night game, but like I've come to love the noon game personally, and not just as a media person. Matt Groves finishing us out. What do you think is the worst case scenario for Michigan football this season? I would say 6-6 is an absolute worst case scenario if Bryce is starting QB and has those freshman mistakes. I don't anticipate that he would have the same types of freshman mistakes that you are referring to. I think if Bryce has the quote freshman mistakes, we're looking at 8-4. If Bryce is injured or Mikey Keene doesn't work, and Mikey Keene doesn't work out, let's put it that way, 8-4. But look at the schedule. We did a whole show on this yesterday, so I'm going to refer you to that because we are running out of time. Anyway, that's going to do it. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. We will talk to you again on Friday. Peace.